Yes.
Great, perfect. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining Mindset's webinar on S/4HANA warehouse management offerings. So we're going to talk about EWM and some other deployment options. As Amy mentioned, my name is Stephanie Weiss, and I am a Senior Solution Architect with Mindset. Today, I'll be walking you through the various WMS offerings in S/4HANA. So today's agenda, we have a lot to kind of get through today. We'll start with a brief introduction of Mindset. We'll walk through the history and evolution of SAP warehouse management, and we'll then go through a quick overview of the various different S4 WMS offerings. We'll dive a little bit deeper after that into the key differences between standard WM, something called Stockroom management in EWM. Then we'll discuss migration options and strategies, mobile strategies for both on-prem and cloud. We'll talk a little bit about the reporting and analytics capability within EWM. And lastly, we'll talk about how Mindset Consulting can help you in your journey to S4 and EWM. So our mission at Mindset is completely committed to making technology experience significantly better at work for everyone. At Mindset, we have 5 main practices. The first being strategic advisory services, whether that's UX, S4, or EWM. I think one of the things that really sets Mindset apart from other organizations is our really strong design practice. In our Minneapolis office, we have an SAP certified app house in which we host design thinking sessions to help foster and build creative and innovative SAP solutions. For implementations, we do everything from traditional functional technical consulting, so boots on the ground, to custom development, to Fiori development. We also offer managed services, and we do have several software applications that we do sell. So we're going to walk through the history and evolution of SAP. So standard WM was initially introduced in 1992 and has been widely adopted with over 7,000 customers worldwide. In 2002, SAP partnered with CAT Logistics in Ford Corporation to develop a new warehouse solution specific to the service part management industry. This joint initiative eventually evolved into what we know as extended warehouse management, which was released in 2005 and was only offered as a decentralized option so that it would not impact the 7,000 customers that were already using standard WM. Over the course of the past 17 years, EWM has evolved into a best-of-breed WMS system that can compete with the more traditional solutions like Manhattan and Red Prairie. Out of the box, EWM incorporates core ECC-WM functionality, plus more advanced and robust features that can support higher volumes, more complex business processes such as slotting and rearrangement, kitting, and value-added services. And with EWM, there's a much tighter integration to other SAP modules like TRM, QM, yard management. Excuse me. Oops. With the release of S/4HANA 1610, EWM was offered as an embedded application component, eliminating the need to replicate business partners, master data, or transactional documents through SIF, which ultimately greatly simplifies the IT landscape. Initially, SAP announced that standard ECC-WM would be available in S/4HANA on-prem only, but would eventually be phased out and no longer supported after 2025. And then they recommended that customers migrate to embedded EWM. However, with such a large customer base using standard WM, SAP received a lot of pushback from their existing install-based customers. especially those who had low complexity and had really basic warehouse processes, who saw EWM as a significant barrier to migrating and adopting S/4HANA. So as a result, last year in June of 2019, SAP announced a new offering called Stockroom Management, which will be included in the S/4HANA 1909 Enterprise Management License. And we'll get a little bit more into what is Stockroom Management in the next couple of slides. So we'll briefly talk through now the different WMS offerings in S/4HANA. But before we do that, we'll go ahead and we have a poll question that I'd like to pose to everybody. So I'm going to launch the poll, and if you wouldn't mind answering the question. So the first poll question is, what WMS solution are you currently using today? So we'll take a few minutes. Well, we'll take 1 minute, and if everybody can answer that poll question, that would be great. We'll give another 10 seconds. So it looks like the majority of the people on the call are currently using standard ECC WM or using EWM in a decentralized environment. We've got a couple people with a third-party WM system, and it looks like we've got 1 or 2 people that are currently using the S4 Embedded Ewm. Thank you, everyone, for entering in your results. So in S4, there are several different WMS options that provide you with the ability and flexibility to have a different deployment strategy for different warehouses within your organization at the same time. As you can see in this plant structure, each storage location has a different WMS strategy. So if you look at S/1, S/1 is IAM managed only. S/2 has standard warehouse management, which is being phased out in 2025. There are rumors that that's being extended until 2027, but it hasn't been made official yet. Storage location number 3 is using Stockroom Management, which again is available in S/4HANA 1909. Storage location 4 is using Embedded Ewm, but it's using the basic version of Embedded Ewm. S/5 is tied to an advanced Embedded Ewm warehouse. And then storage location 6 and 7 are both decentralized options. So at storage location 6 has a decentralized EWM system that is currently sitting on a separate NetWeaver SCM box. SAP also plans to phase out this option in 2025. And lastly, S/7 has decentralized EWM also, but it's sitting on an S/4HANA database, which became available in May of 2019 with the release of EWM 9.5. So the key takeaway here is that depending on your current and future business requirements and processes, your landscape and infrastructure, your future growth and expansion plans, it's possible to have some warehouses utilizing Stockroom Management, others utilizing basic or advanced Embedded Ewm, and others on a decentralized EWM server. This gives you that flexibility to choose an appropriate deployment for your deployment option for your needs. So a one-size-fit-all is not the mantra. Like, you can have various or multiple different solutions within your organization. So what is Stockroom Management? So Stockroom Management is essentially what we know today as ECC WM, but without task and resource management, value-added services, yard management, and wave management. Stockroom Management will be included in the S/4HANA 1909 Enterprise Management License, and it is really ideal for low complexity warehouses that would not really benefit from the added functionality of EWM. The one key benefit of Stockroom is that it helps accelerate and reduce the risk of deploying S4HANA. So Stockroom allows you to migrate to S4, keeping your current warehouse structure intact, and to continue using like the basic WM functionality up to 2025, thus providing you more time to plan and control your EWM adoption. However, one thing to note, so EWM remains SAP's strategic warehouse management solution, so all new warehouse-related enhancements or functionality will occur in EWM and not Stockroom management. But beyond 2025, Stockroom management SAP will continue to support it. So essentially, your standard ECC WM has just been rebranded or renamed as Stockroom management. So Embedded EWM has two versions you can choose from. There's Basic and Advanced, which we'll kind of dig into a little bit more in the next slide. Some key benefits of an embedded environment is first, it drastically simplifies the IT landscape and it reduces the total cost of ownership since it's now part of the core and does not require a separate server. Also with Embedded EWM, you have better and tighter integration with other modules and S4 components. And there's a significant reduction in data duplication. I think one of the biggest advantages of Embedded EWM is that Basic EWM is included in the S4 HANA Enterprise Management License. However, Advanced EWM requires additional licensing costs, which is the same as a decentralized environment. But the advanced licensing costs are applied at the warehouse level. So smaller, less complex warehouses that don't need advanced functionality, such as kitting or wave management or value-added services, can use and benefit from Basic EWM without the inherent cost of unneeded functionality. And then the warehouses that are a little bit more complex and that do need some of those advanced capabilities can deploy an advanced EWM, and those licensing costs would only apply to those warehouses. Like I mentioned, so Embedded EWM has two flavors, Basic and Advanced. Basic EWM has additional and enhanced functionality over standard LEWM. For example, it includes layout and process-oriented storage control, task interleaving. It has some advanced production integration. It includes resource management, and it definitely has some more robust monitoring and reporting capabilities. So Advanced EWM offers all of the same stuff that Basic has, but then it also offers significantly more functionality such as wave management, value-added services, kitting, whether that's make to order or make to stock, and it also has things, internal processes like slotting and rearrangement. And we'll get a little bit more into some of those advanced capabilities a little bit further in the presentation. Earlier, I mentioned that one of the key benefits of Embedded EWM is the reduction of data duplication. So prior to Embedded EWM, all master data, configuration, transactional data, and predecessor documents such as the expected goods receipt had to be replicated or transferred from your ECC environment into EWM. With regards to master data, material masters, customers, vendors, batch masters, they were all created in ECC and then were replicated to EWM to the core interface, which is otherwise known as SIF. With Embedded EWM, this is no longer required because they actually share these records. So once you actually create these records in S4HANA, they're automatically available in Embedded EWM. Also with Embedded EWM, you no longer have to duplicate configuration. So you can define your HU types, packaging materials, shipping conditions once and be done. So prior to Embedded, you had to configure those data elements in the ERP system and then reconfigure them again in the Decentralized EWM. But with Embedded, that second duplication of the configuration is no longer needed. I think one of the biggest benefits to embedded EWM is the elimination of the ODR and the IDN. So the ODR is the outbound delivery request, and IDN is the inbound delivery notification. So prior to embedded EWM, the inbound and outbound deliveries were created in ECC and then replicated in EWM, which resulted in the creation of an IDN and ODR. These documents were then converted to an EWM inbound delivery or an EWM outbound delivery. So essentially you had two separate documents for each ERP document, and none of the document numbers matched, which I've found incredibly confusing, and I don't quite understand why SAP designed it that way. However, with embedded EWM, when an outbound delivery is created in S4, it automatically creates an EWM outbound delivery. So that middle document, the ODR, is no longer required. One thing to note with the release of 1909, the S4HANA outbound delivery number, so the outbound delivery that's created in your S4HANA system, will be the same number as the EWM outbound delivery number. So from 1909 moving forward, the outbound delivery both in S4HANA and EWM will have the same number. And this is also true for inbound deliveries, which is a huge, which I think is a huge benefit in 1909. In decentralized EWM, an expected goods receipt is required to receive against a PO or production order. With embedded EWM, you can actually now receive directly with reference to that PO or production order. So it's just an elimination of these predecessor documents, similar to the ODR and the IDN. And then lastly, with embedded EWM and quality management, you no longer have to use the QIE inspection document. You can actually do follow-on functions directly from the S4HANA inspection lot. So decentralized EWM, so we just briefly kind of covered embedded EWM and the benefits of embedded EWM. However, decentralized EWM will continue to be a viable deployment option in S4HANA. Some reasons you might lean towards a decentralized environment is one, it provides 24/7 capability even when your ERP system is down. Two, the ability to connect to multiple ERP systems to your EWM box. And then three, one of the biggest advantages of using a decentralized environment is the ability to upgrade your ERP and your EWM systems separately. So classic decentralized EWM is deployed on SAP NetWeaver or a separate SEM server with any database, and is connected to the S4HANA using remote function calls and SIF, which is the core interface. In May of 2019, SAP released EWM 9.5, which is actually built on an S4HANA platform and an S4HANA database. So SIF, so the core interface, will no longer be used in EWM 9.5 to transfer materials and batches and other master data. Instead, master data from ERP will be transferred through the standard ALE IDOC interface. However, one thing to note that the same queued RFC that is used in the classic decentralized EWM will also be used for bidirectional transfer of transaction objects. So like goods receipts, goods issues, those kind of transactions will also continue to use the QRFC. So decentralized EWM essentially provides the same functionality as advanced embedded EWM with a few exceptions. For example, the reuse of ERP delivery numbers. So having that same delivery number in the ERP system and embedded EWM, that functionality is not available in a decentralized environment. Other things that are not available is the synchronous stock postings with IM, better visibility to ERP storage location assignments, and some of the new enhanced Fiori apps are not available in decentralized EWM. So, so the next, we're going to walk through the
Stephanie, I think we lost audio.
Okay, hold on one second. Oh, can you hear me?
Yes. Yep, you're back.
All right.
Thanks.
Yep, that was weird. Okay. So this slide compares at a very high level the differences between stockroom management, embedded, and decentralized EWM by key warehouse processes and functionality, and it's indicated by the number of check marks. For example, stockroom management provides very basic inbound processing and outbound processing functionality, and that's indicated by like a single check mark. While advanced EWM and decentralized EWM provides the most robust advanced functionality. As you can see with the absence of check marks for stockroom management, or the absence of check marks, so stockroom management does not support value-added services, kitting, or wave management. These functionalities are only available in advanced or decentralized EWM. So in this slide, we're going to dive a little bit deeper and highlight some of the similarities and key differences for outbound processing. For example, if you look at the picking strategies, they are the same across the board. So regardless of your WM solution, you still have the ability to pick by FIFO, LIFO, small, large quantities, fixed bin, etc. So that functionality stays the same across the board. However, if we look at wave picking, in standard WM and Stockroom, you have really, really basic wave picking functionality. And it's not really robust and most people don't necessarily use it. But in EWM, you have significantly more advanced capabilities, such as wave creation. You can also assign a delivery to multiple waves, and we'll discuss this a little bit more in the next couple of slides. So if we look at internal warehouse processes, such as warehouse optimization, in standard WM, your only option was really to download the data, extract it out of SAP, and then do some offline analytics, whether that was in Microsoft Excel or in some kind of Access database. In EWM, you have advanced slotting and rearrangement functionality. And essentially what that does is that slotting determines the optimal storage bins or storage locations based on historical and forecasted product movement. And then based on that determination, it will recommend or initiate a rearrangement to tell you where to move products. So if you've got some product that, you know, it's seasonal and it was moving really fast in the summer and things are slowing down and it doesn't look like it's going to move much in the fall or winter, SAP will see that and will recommend that you maybe move it out of your fast moving lanes and then move other more fast moving product that in the next 6 weeks or 2 months you have a lot more touches. It's going to propose that you move those in toward, you know, closer towards the dock doors or into your fast moving bin section. Also in EWM, you have value-added services, which such as make to stock, make to order, repacking, relabeling. That is all fully integrated and supported in EWM. However, not available in standard or stockroom management. For time's sake, during this webinar, I won't go into detail for each warehouse process area, but in Appendix A of this presentation, I've included similar slides that kind of highlight the key differences for warehouse structure, stock management, inbound processing, and reporting and analytics. So after this webinar, if you would like a copy of the presentation to view the additional slides, just please reach out to myself or Amy or anyone else at Mindset, and we can definitely provide you a copy. So I wanted to kind of talk quickly through my top 5 EWM picks and why I love EWM so much, because I think that with a lot of the enhancements that they've made, that it really has become a best of breed warehouse solution. So one of my top picks is the added functionality and of activity areas and bin sequencing. So an activity area in EWM is a logical grouping of storage bins. So you can group several rows or aisles within a warehouse together, or even subdivide your rows by levels. Through the use of activity areas and warehouse activities and storage bins, you can now sort your storage bins and sequence them differently to support different multiple picking paths. So before it was really you had to go up an aisle, down the other aisle, up an aisle, down the other aisle with standard WM. However, in EWM, you can have things like U picking, Z picking, S picking. So with activity areas and advanced bin sequencing functionality, you can support all different types of pick paths. My second top EWM pick is kitting functionality. So in EWM, there are, so EWM fully supports 3 different kitting processes. So you have make to order, make to stock, and reverse kitting. Make to stock products are built based on forecast requirements. So kits are pre-built to be stocked in the warehouse as individual SKUs for future order fulfillment. So MTS is fully integrated with your production. Make to order, on the other hand, products are built dynamically based on customer sales orders. However, one thing to note is that if they're, but the MT orders are only initiated if there's not available stock in the warehouse. So for some reason, if you had built a product and then the sales order got canceled and you had to put the stock back in the warehouse, the system is smart enough to say, oh, well, I have a customer that needs 100, but I've got 25 that's already sitting in the warehouse. So I'm going to pick those 25 and then I'm going to create a make to order stock for 75. Once MT order product is completed, it actually does not require put away into the warehouse, and you can actually stage it from the kitting line directly to the shipping dock. Reverse kitting allows you to disassemble an MTO or an MTS product back to its original components, which then can be put back into the warehouse. My third favorite is fixed bin replenishment. You do have some basic fixed bin replenishment within standard WM. However, in EWM, there's 2 additional enhancements that they've added, which I think is were crucial. One, you now can have multiple fixed bins per material. In standard WM and Stockroom, you're limited to 1. And then the other is that you can actually automatically replenish or you can trigger replenishment upon a transfer order confirmation. So you actually don't have to have or wait for the replenishment program to run and create a new replenishment order. My fourth pick are warehouse creation rules. So warehouse creation rules can be used to basically slice and dice your workload to best support different picking processes within your warehouse in order to maximize your picking and your packing efficiencies, your equipment, and resource utilization. So with the warehouse creation rules, you're able to group single line orders together. So if you had, you can now create a group of 10 sales orders with or deliveries with only 1 line, so that you can easily pick, pack, and get them out the door quickly. You also can group orders together with lines between 2 and 9 is another idea. So you can group them in quantities of 3 or 5 or whatever, and that could help facilitate my 5th pick, which is pick to cart, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. You also have the ability to be able to group export orders together, since they oftentimes have different shipping processes and require additional labeling or documentation, so those can be segregated off. And then also with like your freight orders or your LTL orders, sometimes depending on the weight of the pallet or the weight of the product, it might require different packing requirements or different pallets or so forth. So then now you are able to kind of group orders together, freight orders based on weight. So you can say anything between 150 and 250 is going to be in one group. Anything above 250 is going to be another, because it requires additional packing. Okay, my last pick is pick to cart. This is actually only available as a Fiori application. What this allows you to do is that it allows you to pick multiple orders at the same time, weaving through the warehouse once. So basically, a lot of times in a warehouse, a picker will pick one delivery at a time, and then take that to the shipping lanes or the packing station, and then go back and pick the next delivery. This actually allows you to have some kind of a cart with 10 bins, let's say, for example, and as you walk through the warehouse, your first pick may be for order number 1, your second pick may be for order number 5, and SAP is going to facilitate that process and have you weave or weave you through the warehouse one time, picking all 10 orders at the same time. Okay, so now we're going to kind of talk about, we've talked about the different options in S4HANA. Now we're going to talk about how do I actually get there from ECC to S4HANA. So there's actually several different ways that you can actually migrate from an ECC environment to your S4HANA environment. The first is going from ECC WM to S4HANA standard WM or Stockroom management. That's through migration path number 1. And that you do that through utilizing a compatibility pack that you can use to move from WM to an S4 compatible version. Once you're actually in S4, then you can migrate your existing warehouse structure to either basic or advanced through migration path 2A or 2B. Another option is to do a quote-unquote greenfield EWM implementation. So instead of taking your existing warehouse and converting it or migrating it to to EWM, you actually can create a brand new EWM warehouse and then do a loc-to-loc transfer from, or loc-to-loc data migration from your existing standard WM warehouse to a greenfield EWM warehouse. So option 2C is actually a great option if you are currently highly customized and you want to move more towards a vanilla system. Or if you want to activate new functionality or implement new functionality like handling unit management, change naming conventions, or if you don't want to manage a dual migration path. So that's another option. The third option is that you can actually set up a decentralized environment in ECC and then just migrate from ECC to S4HANA using the same tools that you would in 2A and 2B. So like I mentioned in the previous slide, SAP provides a migration tool within EWM to migrate certain data objects from WM to EWM. So using this tool, you can migrate your entire warehouse structure, including your storage types, your sections, your bins. You also can migrate your master data and any HU related data like HU types, packaging materials, and so forth. You also can migrate your WM movement types, placement strategies with this tool. So this migration from LEWM to EWM is really considered just a technical migration. So afterwards, you still have to go through an implementation process to turn on EWM specific functionality. So that process entails, your standard blueprinting phase, realization, testing, and then go live. So once you've migrated or whether you're starting like a greenfield implementation, SAP does have best practices for EWM to help assist in that implementation. The EWM best practices include pre-configured processes, sample structures, and automated workflows that can be deployed, quote unquote, out of the box. However, in my experience, these are very, very basic and still require significant configuration and testing. So once you've determined your migration strategy, the next step is to define the scope and your implementation approach. I've seen numerous EWM implementations struggle or fail because they were trying to do too much too soon. EWM offers a lot of robust functionality, but more functionality equates, in my opinion, to more complexity. So I think that sometimes implementation teams do not fully appreciate how complex EWM can be. So my suggestion in order to minimize the risk of implementing S/4HANA EWM is to deploy key functionalities in a phased approach. This will help minimize the impacts and the amount of change management. It will increase adoption rates. And then as part of the initial implementation, so your phase 1 really should consist of the basic EWM functionality required to efficiently and effectively run your warehouse. So this would include, your baseline configuration, so your storage types and sections, wave picking, replenishment. If you have handling, if you manage your inventory at the pallet level, handling unit management, transportation units, yard management, physical inventory, and any integration components. So basically, just the bare bone minimum you would need to really run your business. And then once your implementation in your warehouse is stabilized, I would then slowly phase in more complex EWM functionalities, such as the slotting and rearrangement, task interleaving, dock appointment scheduling, and so forth. And the reason I say this is because advanced EWM requires a really dialed-in baseline. So if your baseline operations are not working, your advanced functionality is not going to work, and it's just going to complicate all of your existing issues. So key takeaway here is that don't try to do everything in the first go. I would identify what do you need at the minimalist, and then as you stabilize, then slowly plan in a phase 2 and phase 3 and add in additional functionality. So we're going to pause here for a moment before we start talking about mobility. We do have another poll, so I'm going to kick that one off. Okay. All right. So this polling question number 2 is, how would you rate your company's mobility maturity? So if we'll take about 30 seconds, and if you wouldn't mind answering this polling question, that would be great. Give you about 5 more seconds. Okay. So it looks like we're kind of evenly spread out here. So we've got some folks that are still learning to crawl, some folks that are, are midway through their journey, and then we've got one that responded that they're running full speed ahead. So for day-to-day operations in the warehouse, such that require high speed, high volume scanning, such as pick confirmations, bin-to-bin transactions, inventory counts, and if you're on-prem, SAP's go-to solution is still ITS Mobile. Out of the box, ITS Mobile, there are numerous transactions that support picking, put away, packing, etc. However, in my experience, these are incredibly generic, and most customers I've worked with have developed customer-specific UIs to better align their physical and business processes within the warehouse. ITS Mobile functionality has been around for a long time. I agree it's not fancy or pretty or really utilizes the latest technology, but it's definitely tried and true solution that is really a dependable workhorse. In a cloud solution, using RF for ITS Mobile in the cloud is very, very limiting. And then also Fiori Apps does not have the performance capability for high-speed scanning. So if you're deploying EWM on the cloud, then SAP recommends using API, which is the application programming interface. So what SAP's current direction is they're planning to open up the EWM backend with published APIs to allow SAP partners and customers basically to design their own mobile transactions. So now we'll talk a little bit about reporting and analytics. So in EWM, if for all of you who use standard WM, you'll know that one of the biggest pain points or griping points within WM is that there is almost no usable or consumable reports in standard WM. In EWM, you have some more reporting and analytical tools that are a little bit more useful. SAP is starting to get there. The first is, so you have warehouse cockpits. So you have different sorts of cockpits. I think the most beneficial one is the shipping cockpit. You also have things like the resource cockpit. You also have the warehouse monitor. If you have SAP WM now, it's the same as WAM, which is the warehouse activity monitor. You also have in EWM, you have something called Easy Graphical Framework. You have a graphical presentation of your warehouse. You also have the ability to build custom UIs or custom transactions using this SAP Cloud Analytics. And lastly, there are some Fiori out-of-the-box KPI transactions, which we're going to walk through all of these in the next couple of slides. So the shipping cockpit in SAP and EWM, it provides a quote-unquote one-stop shop for all activities related to inbound and outbound shipping. So directly from the shipping cockpit, you can actually see the status of each transportation unit. So basically each inbound and outbound truck, you can see if it's arrived or at the door, if it's loading or unloading, and so forth. Directly from here, you can create and change or delete transportation units. You can assign or unassign deliveries and doors. You can do your check-ins and your checkouts. You can initiate your start and end times for loading. And you can also do your post goods receipts and goods issues directly from here. So this is actually a really pretty good tool in EWM. You also have this thing called a warehouse monitor. It's very, very similar to the warehouse activity monitor. However, it adds a lot more, it has a lot more data elements that you can look at. So basically, it's a central tool for monitoring all warehouse activities, and you actually can execute actions from here. So you can confirm your warehouse tasks, you can assign work orders to a resource, and so forth. You also, there is some basic alert monitoring capabilities that you can set up and define that will, identify some bottlenecks. It'll identify things that are overdue, can identify inventory outages and so forth like that. The one nice thing with the warehouse monitor as opposed to the warehouse activity monitor and standard WM is that the warehouse monitor in EWM is actually highly configurable, and it has like drag and drop capabilities. So you can actually, if you have somebody that's just kind of focused on inbound and receiving, you can actually, they can actually customize the monitor to be specific to those transactions or those areas of focus. The other nice thing is that in cases where you have catch weight or you have multiple units of measure, so you have a base and a warehouse unit of measure, you can actually see both of those units of measure at the same time. You no longer have to toggle between pounds and cases. So a couple of other EWM specific tools is the EGF cockpit and the graphical warehouse layout. So both of these are provide more of a graphical presentation of your current warehouse situation. So the number of open tasks, the number of how much you're picking and so forth. I personally don't think that they're incredibly useful or beneficial, and I haven't seen a lot of people using them. I think maybe as this functionality is enhanced in the future, that there's a lot of work I think that can be done to these. So up until now, to build more, so one thing that I think that SAP is still lacking are these really analytical type reports. And so SAP is always, up until now, SAP had provided business object dashboards as a means or as a tool set to actually build your own analytical type reports and KPIs. Unfortunately, the business object dashboards is built on the Adobe Flash Player, which is actually going to be sunsetted by Adobe at the end of this year. So in conjunction with that, SAP will actually stop supporting business object dashboards at the end of this year also. The future tool that SAP has said that can be used and will be supported for more analytical type reporting is the SAP Analytics Cloud. So with EWM, you also have Fiori applications. So currently, there's roughly about 25 EWM Fiori applications that are delivered standard. Majority of those were designed for either the desktop or tablet, so not really, your portable mobile devices. And unfortunately, they're very, very similar to the existing SAP GUI transaction. So it literally looks like, in most cases, they took the GUI transaction, slapped it, put a Fiori interface on it, and it looks and feels and reacts the same way as you would have in the GUI. However, for the first time, SAP with EWM has also attempted for the first time to develop transactions or applications for warehouse KPIs. So this screenshot here is of their warehouse KPI dashboard. So it includes things like the number of overdue outbound delivery orders, the number of open pick warehouse tasks by activity area, or the number of put away tasks and so forth. So in my opinion, this is just another spin on the warehouse monitor. It just provides a snapshot of current state. It really doesn't provide the analytics a warehouse really needs to measure its performance and health over a period of time. So the question becomes, what's possible with Fiori? So really, Fiori provides a baseline and a foundation to design and develop applications and dashboards that can really better monitor your warehouse processes, to provide real-time analytics and actual useful KPIs, such as, if you can see here, inventory accuracy, out of stock rates, OTIF, inventory turnover, average dock to stock, average pick cycle time, and so on. In my experience, these are the measurements and KPIs warehouses really need, and yet there's no standard way to get this out of SAP without extracting and downloading and manually manipulating the data in Excel or an Access database. So this here is actually a snapshot of a mock-up of a product that Mindset is currently designing and developing for EWM. So to give you another example of what's possible, this snapshot here, or the screenshot here, is a mock-up of an outbound shipping dashboard that includes various things that we've developed for other customers. So in the upper left-hand corner, we display the total number of outbound deliveries for a given day and where the warehouse is and with regards to the picking, loading, and PGI. On the right, we have a tile for perfect order rate, where we display the average monthly rate, the target rate, which is configurable, and how you're trending over the past year, comparatively to the target rate. So you'll notice that the orange dashed line is your target rate of 96, and then the blue line is just kind of showing you what that perfect order rate has been starting from September of 2019 all the way through July of this year. In a shipping dashboard, you can also display things like picking productivity, so the number of lines per hour by storage type or zone. You can display things like picking accuracy, picking cycle time. So this allows you to establish some KPIs and really start measuring against them. So for example, here, let me see. In the tile on the bottom left corner, we're showing you the pick rates for different storage types over a 6-week period. Then in the tile next to it, we actually drill down into a single storage type. So like here we're showing the forward pick zone, and we're displaying the pick rates by employees compared to the target rate. So here in a forward pick zone, because you're picking smaller pieces, onesies and twosies, you have a target rate of 72 lines per hour. And then you can see for each of the pickers for week 35, you can see kind of where they're measuring up against this. For each of the different storage types or zones, for like high rack, you might have a lower rate of maybe 25 lines per hour because you're moving full pallets. If you've got case picking area, you could set a different target rate of 45 to 50. So this is all configurable, and then based on those settings, then you can really start to measure your different employees on and how they're, then also easily identify some of your some pain points, and who might need more additional training, what areas might need additional help, and so forth. So just to give you another idea of kind of what's possible, in my experience working in warehouses, one of the things I find that warehouses really like is being able to, throughout the warehouse, in particular in the receiving area and the outbound shipping area, is kind of to display the what's actually happening. So what trucks are sitting at the dock, how much has already been processed, how long they've been sitting there, and so forth. So if you see here, and then be able to project that up on a big screen so that everybody can kind of see. So here we've got just kind of a simple mock-up of what potentially could a shipping monitor, outbound shipping monitor look like. So on the left, we've got your different dock doors, so F3, F2, and F1. We've identified, for each one of those, we've identified the truck or the TU that's sitting at each of those doors, how long each of them have been sitting there, and then kind of where they are with that loading process. So if you'll notice at dock door F003, the truck's been sitting there for 23 minutes. And it's loaded 8 pallets and it has 17 more to go. So they're doing pretty good. With dock door number 1, it's been there for 62 minutes. So if you've got goal times of 1 hour or 60 minutes or 75 minutes, as you approach those goal times, you can say, oh, we might need to pull another person or two on to dock door 1 because we need to get that truck out of here in order to meet our SLAs. Okay, so the big question now is, how can mindset consulting help you? So as you start thinking about your migration to S4, there are some key questions and things to consider when evaluating a deployment strategy. Things like, 1, the number of warehouses and your future expansion plans, and the capacity and velocity of each warehouse. Because if you have numerous large high volume velocity warehouses, you might lean more towards a decentralized EWM. Your need to scale up or scale out. Ultimately, you will need to consider the volume load on the system and whether or not you have third-party warehouses that might favor a more decentralized approach. Other items to consider is downtime mitigation, upgrade capability, warehouse automation, infrastructure requirements, and ultimately, what is the TCO and TCI of deploying an EWM solution? I think the biggest question is really then comes down to, what's the right solution for me? Is it stockroom management, basic EWM, advanced EWM? So how do I go from point A to point B to point C? At Mindset, we have the knowledge and experience to help you answer all these questions, to help you build a business case for EWM, and to help you build that EWM roadmap. So once you've done the planning phase, Mindset can also help with the actual implementation of your WMS solutions, whether that's stockroom management, advanced EWM, basic or decentralized EWM. At Mindset, we have top-notch EWM solution architects and consultants that can facilitate your requirements gathering workshops, perform your fit gap analysis, architect a global template-based solution, and help you define a mobile device strategy. So in my experience, a lot of companies are really hesitant to fully kind of commit to EWM. And so oftentimes they start with like a pilot program, which I think is a great idea. So Mindset, we can also help stand up an EWM warehouse in your sandbox to prove out the functionality and that it will actually meet your business needs. We can help with that technical migration from ECC to S4HANA. We can do all of the configuration and testing. We can help with the process reengineering and process optimization, development, whether it's ABAP or ITS Mobile, Fiori. And then lastly, we can also support any integration, UAT, and performance testing. And then lastly, you know, we kind of carry it all the way through the end of the deployment phase, where we can help with end user training, knowledge transfer, making sure that your team in-house is equipped to take over and run with it. We can help with the preparation of the cutover plan and the deployment of that. We can execute the data migration and all the cutover activities. And lastly, just be that ongoing partner to help provide go live and hypercare support. So I'll pause here. We have a few minutes to answer any questions, if there's been any questions.
There have been a number of questions, so let me just get to those. Thank you very much for that presentation, Stephanie. It was fantastic as always. The first question is, how much effort will be required to convert from ECC EWM to S4 Stockroom Management? The ECC EWM functions we have today matches with the S4 Stockroom Management.
Yeah, so then, yes, so so it would be a relatively simple process. There's this compatibility tool that you can execute and run, and it will automatically convert everything over into the S4. So it's relatively pretty painless, with the exception if you're using any of those components that aren't no longer available in Stockroom Management, you'll have to make some allowances and make some changes in that. But from my experience, a lot of people who are using basic EWM really aren't using a lot of those additional components just because they weren't really fully integrated with standard WM. But pretty much it's not that hard to go from ECC to S/4HANA Stockroom Management, because essentially Stockroom Management is ECC WM.
Perfect. Next question. Are there any further improvements in the new S/4HANA release 2024 EWM?
I believe so, but I don't know off the top of my head what those are. I'm just kind of up to speed on the 1909 release. I have not looked at the 2020 stuff yet. But I will say, so SAP's commitment is to continue improving and enhancing EWM. So I would envision that there will be additional enhancements moving forward. And actually, I do have a link to their roadmap of kind of what they've planned out over the next couple of releases that we can actually share with everybody.
That's perfect. Why do you recommend show decentralized EWM for third-party warehouses?
So a lot of times you want to you'll use the third-party decentralized EWM for security purposes to kind of disconnect them from your S4 box. It also allows them from a decentralized EWM system. It allows the third-party warehouse to connect into if they have a separate ERP system also, they can actually then connect their ERP system directly into a decentralized EWM system. It also, with that too, if your ERP system goes down or you're taking it down for like a scheduled maintenance, it does not impact your third-party warehouse.
Perfect. How do you select the right WMS solutions?
That's a really complicated question, and I will give my standard response. It depends. So this is actually a case-by-case, you have to answer that on a case-by-case basis. So there's lots of factors that really kind of go into that decision-making process. So kind of, and it's not a one-size-fits-all between companies within a certain vertical or even within your own company. So you may have, if you're a global operation, not every warehouse in your operation is going to be a good candidate for EWM, and I wouldn't necessarily recommend it because EWM is significantly more complicated. So you really have to look at it at on a case-by-case, warehouse-by-warehouse basis. So if you have warehouses that are really simple, that are, don't do a lot of those complex warehouse processings like repacking, kitting, have complicated kind of wave picking requirements. You know, stockroom management is definitely a very viable option. So if you are, you know, receiving product from manufacturing and you're moving mostly, you're utilizing or moving mostly, you know, full pallet quantities, maybe doing some case picking, you know, or you're doing, you know, your really simple basic warehouse processes, stockroom management is the way to go. If you've got large distribution centers that have lots of moving pieces and is doing all kinds of different things, then, you know, looking at EWM, whether it be basic or advanced, you know, that might be the appropriate solution for them. But it really, you have to kind of look at each individual warehouse and their needs, their future growth, their expansion plans, and make a determination. Usually in my experience, in my implementation experience, it's usually a hybrid model. So usually most global corporations or large corporations will have some warehouses that will continue to utilize or deploy stockroom management, and you have others that are using EWM, whether it's advanced or basic. But EWM is not the right solution across the board for everybody. It could be, but it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be. But that's the nice thing with S4 is that you have 4 or 5 different flavors, and then you can really have a combination between those to define what that right solution is for your business.
Perfect, thank you. Next question. I didn't see or hear a reference to IM. Is this concept still available in S4?
Yes, it is. Yes, so IM is still a viable solution in S4HANA. That does not go away. And then there are lots of enhancements that are being made on the IM S4 side. Yes, so that is still an option.
And then the nice dashboards shown in the presentation, are they out-of-the-box functionality in S4?
So some of them are. So let me, if I can go back, let me, so these ones here, these are standard out of the box ones. The ones where we start talking about kind of what's possible, these are not standard out of the box. These are actually dashboards. So this is actually a product that Mindset is currently developing because we feel that there is a huge need for this. And this is something that SAP has not developed and is not going to be, and as far as I can tell, is not part of their future enhancements for EWM. What they have said, you have Fiori and you have this SAP Analytics Cloud platform that you can use to build your own dashboards and stuff like this. But in my experience with warehouse management, there are just key measurements, key KPIs that every warehouse needs. And so we are in the process of developing these different dashboards. So we'll have like a overall warehouse performance dashboard to kind of measure the health of the warehouse, including some of these key components. And then we're also building out a shipping dashboard for both outbound and inbound. We're building out kitting dashboards for the MTO, MTS processes and so forth. So yeah, so these Fiori ones that are titled What's Possible, these are things that we've designed either A, for other customers, or are part of our new product that we are building.
Great. And let me just, we do have a couple more questions. For those of you that are asking for the slides, I'm not going to bring that up as a question, but I have made note of all of you that have asked for the slides, and we'll follow up with those. Next question. Is there any separate configuration node for stockroom management in S4 1909?
Ask that question again. I'm sorry.
Is there any separate configuration node for stockroom management in S4HANA 1909?
No, it's part of the standard. It's part of the standard LEWM config.
Perfect. And then let me just check. I think. Oh no, one more. Is SAP Console supported in S4HANA?
I don't know that answer. I would imagine, I don't know the answer for that one. I would say yes, since it is supported in LEWM, and LEWM is supported up through 2025. However, you know, SAP Console is the predecessor to ITS Mobile, and SAP is still recommending ITS Mobile for S4HANA. I apologize, I don't know the actual answer to that one.
Okay, well, you knew the answer to lots of other things, so perfect. Great, I think that is the end of our questions. That was a lot of them today. So, so that's it. Stephanie, back to you.
Okay, well, that was all I had, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining our Mindsets EWM presentation. Look forward to other additional invites. We plan to have additional EWM presentations coming up in the near future. With that, this was the intro presentation. We do plan to have some presentations or webinars that dive actually further deeper into some of the key EWM functionalities. If there's topics with regards to EWM that you would like to see us present, I can definitely do that. So if you have any ideas or suggestions for things you'd like to hear or learn about, please share those ideas, and hopefully we can accommodate those.
Perfect. And thanks everybody for joining us today. I know we ran it a little long, but we had so many questions that were so great that we wanted to get to all of them. Visit mindsetconsulting.com to see the list of our other upcoming webinars. We have a number of exciting sessions, as Stephanie mentioned, planned for this fall, both on EWM and other topics related to SAP. Have a great afternoon, and thanks again for joining.